नाउ जो हमारा पहला टेक्निकल सेशन है वर्किंग पेपर मैनेजमेंट और इन बैंक ऑडिट. So I again welcome you all, and as you are aware that our first technical session of this conference is on working paper management. Working paper are the real property of auditors. Now, before starting session, I just giving brief introduction of our speaker. CA Niranjan Joshi ji, basically from Mumbai, is fellow chartered accountant. He qualified DISA IFRS certificate course on concurrent audit as well. He is in practice since 1997. He is currently working in the field of banking and financial sectors. He is review for peer review board and financial reporting review board. He is speaker in training programs, seminars organized by ICI at various places, locations. So we are very honored to have you, sir. So I again welcome you on behalf of Indore branch and for accepting our invitation. So I request our speaker to start the session and to address the conference.
Good morning to all. At the outset, let me thank CA Kirti ji, Chairman of the branch, and CA Ankush, Secretary of the branch, for inviting me here and giving me this opportunity to share some of my views related to bank branch audit, especially with respect to documentation. Also, I'd like to thank the Chairman of your CIRC, the sitting past Chairman of Indore branch, and other office bearers, because in this COVID-19 situation, doing things in the way we expected to do in non-COVID scenarios is tough. And that's what I was referring to Kirti ji, that your job is more difficult than mine, because my job is to speak about what are my ways of doing documentation with respect to bank branch audit. But for you all to manage this entire vibrant branch, which is number one branch, to maintain it in this fashion is commendable. Congratulations for that. Coming to the topic today, first of all, I must thank Ankush. We had briefly interacted in the month of February, and this is something, a topic which I feel most of us do follow, but not to the extent as our standard requires us. And especially when it comes to uh, working papers, we believe that we have enough working papers, but somehow they are not properly being documented. Also, based on my own experience to deal with the peer reviewer, I always face this difficulty to line up all the papers. And then I realized that since it's a continuous process, I think the branch auditors also must make good efforts to keep documentations. And when I was looking at the entire course and the 7 or 8 topics which are going to be covered, I think there has been a change compared to the previous periods, when we used to have standardized topics. But in this revised scenario of virtual audit, I think documentation is becoming very, very difficult. Last year, all of us have done this audit in COVID prime time, May, April, May, whatever. Similar situation is appearing this time as well, it seems. Like today, if we could see the numbers of COVID patients which are increasing day by day, I think all of us in bank branch audit for March 21 probably will have to do audit in a mixed fashion. Maybe if we get a chance to get a branch which is near to our own offices, probably we may afford to visit. But maybe considering the kind of restrictions we have in traveling, I think the virtual audit is going to be in major places. And I think with this background, I've tried to bring in all my experience of dealing with documentation into our presentation. Primarily, this bank branch audit activity is an annual ritual. So once in a year we get it. So naturally, all of us are eagerly waiting about it. But the challenges are plenty this time. Number one challenge is, there are merged entities in the banking sector, and there may be a probability that if you are appointed as an auditor of a merged branch, which is merged from A bank to B bank, there would be probably change in software, upgradation of software. Probably data would be available in two different segments prior to migration in A software, post migration in B software. So probably you will have to take into consideration what's happening around in deciding about the quality of working papers you would be maintaining. So primarily, I'll be taking you through my own process of what I try to do during this bank branch audit activity to maintain working papers effectively. Primary objective of maintaining working papers is two. Number one, my audit conclusion is properly arrived at when I complete my assignment. Number two, whenever by law or regulation I am required to present my working papers, like those who are undergoing peer review, this particular assignment can be picked up by the peer reviewer and they can test your audit processes. One thumb rule which I have been maintaining is, very commonly known to all. While studying, also we learned it a lot from our bosses. Is that if you don't do documentation, that means you have not done the audit. No documents, no audit. The entire idea about documentation or SA 230, which we'll see in the latter part of my presentation, would be that the document should speak about what audit you have conducted. It's not the individual team members who should come and explain about the processes, but your documents themselves should speak about what kind of audit you have conducted at that part. So with this background, let's start with our discussion. Primarily, the entire set of documentation would have the same objective, which is the objective of our conducting of this particular assignment. The first requirement is compliance with law and regulation. Here in this bank branch audit activity, the regulator is Reserve Bank of India. So our RBI guidelines up to the date of completion of our audit, whatever are directly applicable to all of us would be updated from our point of view. Also, there would be a lot of ICAI guidelines, and recently you would have got the copy of Bank Audit Guidance Note, technical guide on revised long-form audit report, and technical guide on internal financial controls for public sector banks. These three documents primarily covers the entire scope of our bank branch audit this year. Also, important documents to keep in your working papers is terms of appointment. Like primarily, if you look at the SA 230 compliance, there would be one set of permanent file and one set of working paper file. Usually, we carry a copy of appointment letter, then engagement letter, acceptance letters, declaration of fidelity secrecy, NOC from previous auditor, all that as part of a permanent file. But last 5 years, I've seen a lot of changes happening in terms of appointment. And the kind of requirements and the more detailing of those requirements are being specified in appointment letters. Sometimes it's running into 2 or 3 pages as well. Even last year, I saw a couple of very interesting points mentioned by different banks in the appointment letter, especially with respect to how to conduct a virtual audit. I remember one bank in the first week of April itself issued appointment letters last year, whereby they had created one portal. And on that portal, for each branch auditor, they had kept certain information which they could access, download, and then make use of those files or those documents for their audit. One bank issued one, a common email address where from they would get data pertaining to branches allotted to that particular branch auditor, and based on those files which are received on email. So naturally, all this is being captured by the appointment letters, terms of reference. On the same lines, in the month of May, I think to be precise, on 6th of May, ICAI has come out with an excellent guidance on how to conduct audit in virtual environment. And that's what I thought that, that should be not out as a part of our permanent audit paper, but for our day-to-day working, maybe offline or online mode, that particular guidance should be carried out throughout the period. Also, compliance with accounting standards and standards on auditing. Now, primarily in case of bank branch audit, the compliance with accounting standard is limited to the notes to accounts and accounting policy of that bank. Because if the branch balance sheet is not a complete set of financial statements, In our audit report also, we mentioned that a lot of provisions are taken care at head office. So certainly it would be a limited application. But for standards on auditing, again, we follow a lot of standards, but we lack a lot in documenting about compliance with those standards. So make a list of what standards are applicable. I will be sharing, some of my views on which standards would directly be applicable, how we follow it, and only where we need to modify is to prepare a document and keep it in our working papers. Also, another important objective for this assignment is doing certification. In this bank branch audit, around 25 certificates are issued by bank as a whole by central auditors to the Reserve Bank of India. Apart from that, from branch auditors, in turn, around 50 odd certificates being taken. I'm saying average number, like in some bank it would be 45, in some bank it would be 55. So all these certificates, the way they are currently in a format, it gives an idea that it is something like an absolute assurance which is being given by the member. If you have gone through the guidance note, I think somewhere on 600 odd page, 650 or 600 to 650 in the guidance note, there is a covering letter for certificates suggested by ICAI. This I think being done second year in a row now. Considering the requirements of special purpose reports and certificates guidance note issued by ICAI in 2016, a 1 or 2 page covering letter has been drafted. And if you can make use of these certificates, and on top of that, if you can write that particular covering letter, then certainly that line of those certificates, which is in an absolute nature or absolute assurance, would get converted into a reasonable assurance, because that particular covering page would talk about that you have verified these on a test check basis during the course of your statutory audit. So make sure that you make a list of all that certificates as per the terms of appointment. Keep it ready on day one in your working papers, so that when you go to the branch, you assign one team member to conduct only verification on a certain test check basis, which you would select, and keep a document for the same. Also, all these efforts, why is to complete this audit assignment in the scheduled time allotted to us. And number two, when the hard work of 18 days of time which you spend at the branch should not be missed out, and all the things which your team has executed during the bank branch audit should be properly captured in various forms of reports, maybe the statutory audit report, maybe the long form audit report, or maybe this year onwards in public sector banks, the internal financial control related reporting. So all the hard work done by your team members, wherever it is concluding into an audit objection, maybe an audit observation, or maybe a comment which you want the readers to know, should be properly captured. So that's the reason the basic objective of this entire audit activity should be documented on day one and properly informed to team members, so that they would take all the efforts to maintain proper documents which would be helpful for you to conclude this assignment. As I said, guidance note 2021 edition is already available. Uh, a must read document for all of us. Lot of new changes have happened, and all of them up to I think 28th February are being covered by this particular document. Those who have gone through it last year, certainly no need to go through all 600 or 800 pages together. But at least my request would be, when you download this particularly, ask your team members to go through audit guidance provided by this guidance note in certain matters which would be useful for you. Like say, for example, the way the sessions are drafted today and tomorrow, the major areas are being covered by Indore branch in discussions. So naturally, you may select those areas like advances, non-performing assets, capital adequacy, maybe deposits, KYC, AML, revised LFAR, revised IFC requirements. Maybe 10 items you can list down and put your team member to go through this entire document, mark those areas with number of pages, like say 400 to 415, etc. And then wherever the audit guidance is provided in guidance note, usually if you see last 2-3 years, there has been a small 4-liner, 5-liner, 4-pointer, 5-pointer guidance is provided, but how to conduct that particular activity. If you can summarize that and bring it together as one document, then I think that purpose of reading through the entire updates and guidance note would be made useful. Again, revised format for audit report. You have the third session for today exclusively dealing with long-term audit report and IFC. Again, this entire exercise of keeping documents is ultimately for two reasons. As I said in the beginning, number one, the document itself should speak that what's the level of audit conducted. Number two, entire hard work of your team is being properly captured in effective reporting. So naturally, my entire audit plan, entire audit execution process should be ultimately linked with the reports which I am going to issue. So ideally, we should understand from this guidance note that what are the new requirements for branch auditors, because this 2004 long form audit report circular and 2021 requirements, that is 5th September 20, the RBI circular. There are certain questions which are really important for all of us as branch auditors. No doubt, the other speaker would cover them, but one is how the exceptional reports generated by system are being dealt with by the branch. Number two, what is the level of softwares used by the branch and whether they are integrated. Or maybe third question I can easily recollect is whether there is an MIS. If yes, have you gone through the MIS and have you found out something out of that MIS? Now, typically, when we go to the branch, the first question we ask them that, do you have this report? Do you have that report? We need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 reports. And the best answer what we get is, sir, ye to system generated hai, humko kuch nahi pata. So audit trail has become very, very challenging, And if you see the yesterday's SMS, which was circulated amongst many groups about MCA notifying about what are the kind of audit trails required, etc. In bank audit, this audit trail through CBS is something which is very, very crucial for all of us. So all these updates based on new sets of questions and the new guidance suggested by ICAI should be properly documented by all of us so that proper guidance can be given to team members that what are the activities, what is the methodology in which an audit should be conducted, what are probable documents either in physical format or electronic format should be obtained, and then based on the testing, how one should write a report. All that guidance this particular publication would give us. Another important publication is like internal financial controls. Primarily, this document focuses on the same lines of internal financial control guidance note issued by ICAI in 2015 with specific scope coverage of bank branch audit and bank statutory audit in public sector entities. Now, the challenge here would be there are many controls which are centralized controls and there are many controls which are operational controls. So to my knowledge, what you will have to study out of these would be the operational controls as applicable in bank branch audit environment, bring it at one level, make a small checklist for testing. Primarily, I personally feel that central auditors of a public sector bank would certainly issue a questionnaire to the branch auditor that what are the key risk factors you will have to check with respect to this control testing. And then based on your test check during the period under audit, you may probably will have to answer about whether you have seen that there are enough controls established at the branch. Again, the long form audit report with respect to additional changes and this IFC questionnaire may be involving 40, 50, 60 risk areas which you will have to test probably would be very important. So risk control matrix, understanding the operational controls would certainly require a major guidance from the main partner or a proprietor dealing in that bank audit. Based on your earlier experience, no doubt, the stat audit covers this internal control testing, but again, the challenge is we do not enough document it. Now, this particular requirement of answering a questionnaire probably on internal financial controls would bring all our experience of last 5 years, 10 years, 15 years to testing. And then we may have to properly guide our team members about what should be the methodology of testing it and probably what could be sets of documents we should keep in our working papers. So these are three new publications all of them you can download, use the checklists which are provided in them. Like in the first guidance note 2020, you will have a detailed audit program. That audit program can be starting point for all of us to keep a documentation. So what I suggest my team normally is, I use the standardized audit program which is suggested by guidance note because it is quite exhaustive. It covers substantial portion of our bank branch audit activity. Then I pick up, the requirements with respect to long form audit report and make sure that all the questions of long form audit report are properly addressed by the points covered by the audit program. If there are any points which are not covered, like say for example, till last year in long form audit report, there was single question about compliance with prudential guidelines on income recognition asset classification. There was only one question in advances, that whether the bank branch has followed IRAC norms. Also, in the income part of long form audit report, there was only one question, whether for income recognition norms have been followed. Now, in advanced section itself, there are 12 new questions which are added pertaining to only NPAs, IRAC norms. So certainly, if my audit program does not have elaborative checkpoints for all those 12 questions, then there may be a fair chance that my team may not cover those areas during the normal audit process. So to that extent, whatever are new changes which have been brought in by the new long form audit report format, you have to map it with your audit program. So that's the first thing we should do. Number two thing, what we should do is about the RBI circulars which are hosted on the website. Check at least up to 28th of February, what I could gather was around 105 circulars from 1st July. Also, there are COVID-related circular issued in April, May, and June, first 3 months of the year. They are around 59 total circulars. So making somewhere around 165 circulars up to 28th February, which would be very, very important for all of us to at least go through once, check whether they are directly applicable. Like some of these circulars, some of the other speakers are going to certainly cover it, but few would be directly applicable to us. We may, bring it in our working paper document management file and keep it ready for a ready reference of our team members, so that when they go to the branch for conducting of an audit, they should be ready with what is the RBI requirement vis-a-vis whether their test shows the same result, that the branch is in compliance with those circulars. Like a couple of them I could easily recollect is on 6th of August, there is a circular related to MSME restructuring. Maybe no doubt it is an extension to 1st January 2019 circular related to same subject. Maybe 11th February 2020, also the same subject, there was an extension given. So from Jan 19 even up to 31st March 2021, there has been third circular issued by RBI for extending timelines for MSME restructuring. So if that is an area, and most of us who will do a branch audit would have a lot of MSME clients as borrowers of the bank, then certainly we may have to create a smaller checklist for compliance, whether number one, there are accounts which are MSME, are they restructured? If yes, then this is the particular checklist one will have to follow. I think we'll share that. So go through this RBI site, find out are there any new notifications, master directions, master circulars, and make use of them. If you know a particular date of a circular, then on the right hand side, you have to click a particular year, click a particular month, and get it. Also, from 2015 to 2020, there have been very less number of instances where RBI issued master circulars. Because 1st July 2015 was the last circular, the series of master circulars issued, and that we are still applying for. But this year on 1st July 2020, we have lots of master circulars issued by RBI. They are in the same nature of compilation of all earlier circulars related to a particular topic. They have been compiled together and a fresh circular has been issued. No doubt they don't have the sanctity of master circulars prior to 2015, but still it's worth to have a compilation of all subject related circulars in one master circular. So you can download those and find out. Like especially, I can remember there is one master circular on treasury, one master circular on KYC has come, one master circular on SHGs, self-help groups related financing has come. So if you get a chance to do audit of a particular branch where such subject matters are of great numbers in case of borrowers, probably that will certainly help you. Based on this, once your audit program and audit plan is ready, lot of work can be done at the ground level at the office before you actually commence the work. No doubt, today we are on 26th of March, so less time is left. But even one full day with team members, understanding what were the difficulties faced by us in the previous audit experience. Maybe some of you would have done audit of a different bank in last year. Now you are doing an audit of different bank this year. But still your other bank experience also would be brought in. So wherever you find that in particular audit program, there are some key areas, key matters where you felt that yes, more time should have been devoted, or you feel that current situation, more time would be devoted. Like take example of advances, even if it's COVID-19 year, there have been 2 or 3 different types of restructures which have come. 6th August MSME, 6th August non-MSME, up to 25 crore personal loans, and above 1,500 crores loans. There is a separate circular on restructuring. So restructuring could be one major area. If banks have gone through restructuring, and when you go to a branch and you ask about the details of advances, you come to know that there are good number of restructured accounts. Certainly, that would be one additional point we'll have to bring in. Another important point is evaluation of internal controls. Primarily up to 2020, our evaluation of internal controls was related to transaction testing. Whatever sample you were checking, based on that you were observing it, or it was restricted to limited questions in long form audit report, which were directly pointing towards internal controls. Like in cash, there was one question about whether there is a joint custody. In bank, there was a question about reconciliation. In inter-branch reconciliation, there was one question about whether responses, double responses, to some extent. But no doubt in today's environment, the revised LFAR is a broader version of internal control questionnaire. And almost all questions, directly or indirectly, point towards whether there are enough internal controls. And based on your testing, you will have to decide whether there are existing internal controls that they are in place and they are being used by the bank, and you are satisfied that based on whatever sample we have selected, nothing has come to our knowledge which causes us to believe that there are no internal controls in bank. Kind of negative assurance. So make sure that your team is properly trained to understand this particular environment about the requirements of revised long form audit report and revised requirement of internal financial control related to financial reporting, and bring it into your audit program. Overall, make sure that before you go to the branch, your schedule for the work is ready. Proper training is given to the team members. Now, if you have gone through SQC 1 or SA 220 for that matter, the biggest challenge is to train the team members. And we do train a lot, but our training is on need to know basis, like the way our reading is. At present, हम सब लोग कब पढ़ते हैं जब कुछ चीज की जरूरत पड़ेगी तो. Otherwise, normally we do not have time to read, because we have time to read only WhatsApp. Beyond that, our reading is restricted. But yes, very few of us are dedicatedly reading the updates. So make your team members to read it, give them proper knowledge before they go. Take a session to make them equipped with sufficient knowledge, tools, so that the moment they go there, they start the work. So overall, laying of a plan, which is execution, is the next stage. So what should be the permanent documents? Like applicable act for the bank. In case of SBI, it would be the SBI Act 1955. In case of nationalized banks, it would be the Banking Companies Acquisition and Transfer of Undertakings Act 1970 or 1980. Appointment letter, acceptance letter, closing manual of the bank, NOC from the previous auditor, audit engagement letter, basic information requirement checklist. All these formats will be available readily in bank audit guidance note. You have to just change the name of the previous auditor, send an NOC. Now, as per the revised code of ethics, I think you have a topic, maybe tomorrow on that, somebody would be sharing their views. Even in email, you can send a NOC. You can call back, minute down. You can send it by normal post, registered post, multiple options provided. But document is a must. Also, make an audit program which is elaborative, covering all the revised sets of requirements. Wherever from RBI circulars, you would take an input, maybe smaller checklist for smaller areas based on a particular circular you may bring in. What's happening currently, like in the introductory speech, the chairman of the branch shared about Honorable Supreme Court judgment. Till 23rd of March, every bank was doing it on an estimate basis because there was a Supreme Court judgment which has stayed the declaration of non-performing assets. And all of a sudden, the revised judgment, rather the final judgment of the Honorable Supreme Court, says that accounts should be declared as NPAs as and when they have been declared as per the extent norms. So again, we'll have to fall back on 1st July 2015 Master Circular of RBI regarding prudential norms of income recognition asset classification. And the banks will have to make an appropriate provision in their system, either in CBS or in an intermediary software, to make sure that on 31st March, correctly the accounts are being classified and further interest reversals or other income reversals activities are being carried out efficiently. Because for last 2 quarters or 3 quarters, to be honest, from June, September, December, all the 3 quarters, none of the accounts have been classified as NPAs by the banks. First 6 months, because of the 27th March 2020 circular of RBI and 17th April 2020 circular, and then next 3 months was deferred from May 31st to 31st August was by 23rd May 2020 circular related to COVID. So 6 months moratorium was granted. So no account was classified as NPA. And subsequent to 31st August, because of this Honorable Supreme Court judgment, everything was on hold. So this is a change, you know. So you will have really, like Ankush also said this, that probably some areas you will have to go back to periods prior to even 31st March 2020 to check whether certain things were in compliance with that. Like say, for example, all these COVID related circulars, 29th February or 1st March 2020 is the notified date. Accounts needs to be standard on that date to avail this particular benefits. Now, as of now, we know last year almost all did audit virtually, except few who had a chance to travel to the local nearest branch to do it. So naturally, to some extent, we need to consider the constraint faced by the previous auditor, and probably we may have to look for some of the compliances even prior to our current financial year in the audit. Most important thing, once you attend such workshops and all, go back, list down what are the new updates you have understood, what are the modifications you did, and that document is very useful for you to say that you are continuously updating the knowledge. Also, have a team discussion, have a team meeting. The training to team members, no doubt, on a need to know basis, every time the team member will talk to you and you will guide them. Wherever possible, minute it down, especially when you face the peer reviewer. Such documents substantiate your stand that there is a process of continuous training to team members when it comes to such specialized audits. Some standards, like whenever I discuss auditing standards with branch bank auditors, I always get a feeling that, you know, almost 80 to 90% compliance is certainly there. Where we lack 10% is only the SA 230 documentation. How? Let's quickly go through in a couple of minutes, you know, like basic principles governing audit. No doubt we would have studied it in our CA final or CA inters and we would have forgotten it. But it's in our blood, you know. When we do audit, without matter of prudence, like substance over form, then materiality, then probably selection on sampling basis, then maybe issuing a reasonable assurance because of all this. All that is part of, our basic standard. Prior to SQC1 being introduced, SA 200 was mother of all standards, you know, covering all our basics like vouching, verification, structured inquiries, issues of memorandums, that is issuing of a query list and obtaining a commentary, minuting down things, observation, all tools how to conduct an audit. But I think based on some of the interaction with bank branch auditors, I believe that we are moving from our standard processes of auditing to, you know, trial balance based audit based on general knowledge. So I wish that, you know, you should go through this standard, look for what is vouching being done, Like if you are going to comment about MIS, if you are going to comment about internal financial controls, I think the first and foremost thing to start would be we'll have to select certain dates on which we need to do vouching to understand the key matters which would be coming in. Like say for example, unless I do a daily vouching, I'll not come to know that how many transactions are posted at the branch where none of the branch officials are authorizing a transaction. I'll give you a few examples to note down. One, CTS 2012. Now, check truncation system, popularly introduced from 2015, 16, 17, now everywhere, the clearinghouse debits all the checks. They authorize the checks. The branch where I am auditing doesn't do anything in it. Three or four factors they check. Number one, the image is clear, not a fraudulent one. Number two, signature is matching. Number three, account number and check number is in the series which is issued. Number four, there is sufficient balance to debit that particular installment. And it will be authorized by the clearing house. So debit would come in a branch where a customer is maintaining an account. Obviously, at the day end, number of transactions would also include one set of transactions where the clearing house has debited or credited certain types of transactions. So they would be part of a daily day book. No branch official will take responsibility for that because they would say they are third party transaction debited or credited in my branch. I'm not responsible. They would suggest that they are system generated entries. They're not actually system generated, they're generated by some other source. Similarly, third party transactions from ATM switch, like the customers of the bank may withdraw funds from different ATMs or online transactions for that matter. Like look at the tax payments, Today, all tax payments almost are done online, So who is the authorizer? Who is the maker checker? Now, I was looking at a small branch which one of my team members was doing a concurrent audit recently, and we could list out around close to 40% of number of transactions posted at a branch on a given day, where there is no maker checker at the branch. It's being authorized by some other officials of the bank, like any bank branch banking. Like I have an account in X bank in Mumbai, I can operate it here. So transaction would be done by this particular branch. They would apply their controls related to maker, checker or whatever. But where the account would get debited or credited is the my parent branch, which is in Mumbai. So make down, a challenge to your team member that go there, first find out what is the scope of work and mention it in control testing that there are third party transactions where debits and credits are happening, but the branch doesn't have maker checker there, hence we could not comment about those transactions whether they have been appropriately done or not. So make a list of such transactions and make sure that it is not the part of responsibility which you are going to take, because you cannot verify the maker checker, you cannot verify the process, but they would have originating debit in the branch where you are auditing. So all those things, SA 200 gives you a fair idea about what to see, how to look at it. And no doubt, IFC controls testing also would request all the members to go through the questionnaire. It will help us. Number two, a document which is opted. Like many a times, branch auditors ask me a question, which document we should keep? Best thing, whenever you link an audit program with long form audit report, I would suggest that in that long form audit report, there are say 100 questions. Against each question, you'll have to answer based on your testing. So keep in Excel one blank column for your answers. Add one column on the right side of that and give a brief suggestion to your team members that if this is the point, this is how you should do the audit. I call it methodology. The guidance note on LFAR provides you basic requirements, basic expectations from you. You can pick it up from them and make it a crisp one and say, like say for example, in cash there are 3-4 questions. One additional question is related to ATM this time added. So primarily the question goes like this: like is there a dual control? That means it's being properly authorized by 2 officials. Number 2 is whether the branch is maintaining cash balance significantly higher than the limits prescribed. Then another question is related to insurance. Another question is related to surprise verification of cash. And now the fifth question added is ATM related cash, whether ATM scroll is generated, is it reconciled properly, etc. Now let's take this as an example. So on every question, right hand side, what you should write is the exact methodology in which the audit team member should list down what is the process. Like say, for example, ask for a copy of letter which specifies what is the amount of retention limit, number one. Number two, list out from the cash register on a daily basis what are the amounts of outstanding balance at the end of the day for all 365 days in a year, and list out anything above that retention limit separately. Number two instruction. Number three instruction, have a materiality. Like maybe 10%, 15% in assets could be a good materiality for bank branch audit. So if say balance is 2 lakhs, then anything above say 10%, 2,20,000 and above would be reported as significantly excess numbers. I've seen many times auditor reporting even 2,01,000 as a significantly excess balance kept. So there you need to identify benchmarking. So what you can do is probably you can suggest your team to write a report in this fashion that based on cash balance verified throughout the year, it is observed that on 200 instances, the cash balance was maintained above the retention limit. Full stop. Out of these instances, following are the instances where it was materially or significantly excess than the limit. And then you may probably say date, retention limit, outstanding balance on that date, how much percentage it is more. Then the reader would effectively understand that yes, almost on 200 occasions, the balance is more. But out of which only 25 occasions are such where it is really more than 10% or 15%, whatever is your maturity threshold. Now, listing down this maturity threshold in the first manner, then listing down verified result of all 365 days, then listing down of excess beyond 10% is something which is all document which will speak for yourself that this entire process was carried out. And that's how you would link it with your entire long form audit report so that your audit program in sync with execution data, in sync with reporting requirement data is at one place. So when you go back at the last day and trying to file the LFR information, you don't have to search frantically in different papers, it will be properly linked. And then automatically all the hard work done by your team members would be captured in your long form audit report. And then you will feel, okay, fine, all the efforts are being properly reported. Otherwise, I have seen it many times in my younger days, that after going back to office, when we start compiling papers, we find one observation and then we realize, oh, I missed it. I could have reported it at this point. I could have reported probably something out of this. And then I will have no choice but to remove it from my working papers, because if I have an observation which I have not reported, that means I have satisfied myself either based on evidence given or discussions being done. Similarly, all these standards which I have listed would have one-page questionnaire. You can prepare for it like audit planning. Making an audit plan, explaining to team members how the audit should be conducted is simple thing you have to document. That's it. Audit program already suggested by the guidance note. You can use it for your branch, perfectly all right. Link it with long form audit report is what you can say that this is the way documentation is being done. Like say, for example, knowledge of business. The first thing we call the branch manager when we come to know that these are the branches is what is the level of advances. पूछते हैं कि नहीं पूछते हैं, राइट? दो कारण है उसके. पहला तो कारण सबको मालूम है कि उसके बेसिस पे फीस डिसाइड होती है अपनी को कितना मिलना है. बट सेकंड इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट क्योंकि हमने पिछले 5-6 साल से बैंक ऑडिटर से इंटरैक्ट कर रहे हैं. एटलीस्ट 50 to 70% ऑफ आवर टाइम गोज इन एडवांसेस एंड एनपीए. रिमेनिंग 30% में बाकी एरियाज है. दिस टाइम थोड़ा ज्यादा टाइम लगाना पड़ेगा. It will be almost 50-50 because internal financial controls hai, additional questionnaire related to MIS, then additional questionnaire related to softwares, additional questionnaire related to what is the mechanism of reporting about exceptional transactions in long form audit report? Certainly yes. And no doubt about this restructuring, various other areas which may be required to be planned in advance. But still, 50% is a substantial amount of time our team spends on advances, NPA, or related matters. Then certainly it's a significant matter. So, which you have done exactly what is expected out of you in SA 310 knowledge of business. But apart from that, this time you may have to elaborate it according to the requirements of long form audit report, like what are the softwares used, are they integrated, how they are integrated. You may have to test one or two sample transactions to check whether the softwares are really integrated. Next year, there will be probably one more thing which would come is daily marking of NPAs. From 1st July, all banks will have to mark NPAs on daily basis from their CBS system. At present, they're capturing data from CBS into an intermediary software and then they are processing it there. So 21-22, this will be more elaborately tested by you. So all these standards, compliance is pretty easy. How to do it? Like audit program, link everything with them. Like here you could see basic coverage requirements of long form audit report. Bring into it like frauds, suspense, sundries. List out what are the skill sets required. Like if somebody like you have to do a lot of data analytics. If you are doing audit virtually, last year you would have seen you will get reports in PDF format probably or a text format. You need to understand at least basic how to convert that into an analytics like Excel or any other spreadsheet and then probably use it. Or this time, as I said, there have been a lot of merged banks, where integration has taken place. So there may be a partial data on older software, partial data during the year for the new software. You may have to look for migration reports. In migration reports, are there any suspense transactions parked? You'll have to immediately comment there and there itself about the quality and quantity of both. Audit trail, big challenge for documentation, Till last year, very limited information was shared. From last year onwards, lot of information is being shared. All that would become your part of audit trail, including even the copies of registers, etc., which you are maintaining. Ledgers from CBS, fine. I remember we did one branch audit last year, and you will be surprised for even GL and PL accounts, I could get the copy of ledgers for full year from the system of the bank, which otherwise they would just show it on a screen. They would say, all the green things they will talk about when we want a printout. So this time, make use of it. Make use of the 6th May 2020 circular of ICAI about asking the bank about right things which they have suggested us to get the information in soft copy. All that can become your audit trail. An audit trail is crucial for linking all the documents with respect to your audit program, execution, and writing of a report. Also, materiality. Like many a times, difficulty in understanding materiality. There is a chapter in guidance store. Please follow that. Or you can start with saying that 5% of gross income, 5% of gross expenses at least would be tested. Above that, if anything, we will pass a MOC. Below that, anything, we'll get a rectification entry pass. That is materiality threshold. If it is a material amount which would impact the financial statements of the branch, certainly a memorandum of a change would be required. To what time, Ankush, I could continue? Maybe another 10 minutes. So this materiality, list it out once. That okay, in advances, this is materiality. In deposits, this is materiality. List it down, sign it, keep it in working papers. Similarly, analytics, best analytics is 4 quarters, compare. Major items of income, expenditure, asset, liabilities. Further, to the extent possible, what you can do. Further, 25th of March with 5th of April, you can compare. See, put one team member only for data, Take TB, trial balance, maybe general ledger, PL, whatever way it comes from the software which is used by the bank. Ask them to compare. Is there unusual trend? Swings either downside or upside? Comment. Ask the management to reply. What is the basis? Why there is an increase or decrease? Satisfactory answers received? Noted down. Sampling, major challenge, Whenever I interact with members, we get an answer that it is random sampling. Why can't we do a statistical sample? This year, the long-term audit report, especially in case of advances, they've suggested that you should list out the account number, name, total amount outstanding fund based, total amount outstanding non-fund based, and total of all these loans which you have verified. What is how much percentage of total outstanding loans at the branch you have tested? So your sample in advances is to be now listed in long-form audit report. So there has to be some basis on which you should do it. It's a small checklist. You can do it. Like list out all the types of loans, pick up some percentages, maybe 10% of total outstanding advances or 10 crores, whichever is lower, should be the minimum coverage. Above that, everything 100% to be checked. Below that, maybe sample based on your own judgment. So for all that, we can make small checklists like this. Obviously, this is suggested by me to my team. Every time this may change. Like cash credit, there would be 2 or 3 types of cash credit facilities at the branch. You may add that, and you can select a larger and broader sample. So minimum 5% of total advances or 10 crores, 10% or 10 crores, whichever is lower. So that there is an error at the bottom, like 5% of total advances is not correct, 10% of total advances you should read. And in the remaining schematic cases, like term loan is a broader area which I have selected. Further, you can drop it down to education loan, housing loan. In housing loan, there could be 2 or 3 schemes. So that the sample overall is selected, because now this time you'll have to comment on internal controls also. So if for a broader or a bigger account, if controls are being established, something similar to that in smaller accounts also needs to be established. Also, you can have smaller checklists like this. Like this is one checklist which I would suggest my team to do it for compliance with restructuring of MSME accounts. At least pick up major points of it. Whatever file they would check, they'll have to go on ticking whether yes, they have checked that exposure is less than 25 crores. Borrower should be a standard asset. Borrower should be registered under GST. Restructuring to be implemented before a deadline, and a 5% provision is to be made. Also, the benefit is for one-time restructuring. So those borrower accounts where the benefit is granted on 1st January or 11 February 2020 circulars, it will not be applicable. So maybe smaller checklist like this, or maybe a broader checklist for, say, verification of advances. Like I've set up maturity, selection of sample, testing of sample selected, noting down of observations, discussion with branch management, and concluding in the report appropriately. Could be a summary sheet on all my documents related to advances, so that at one stretch, anybody looking at your document can say that audit was planned properly, performed and executed properly, and the conclusions are being arrived based on your experience. Also similar, you can do for NPAs, a similar kind of checklist. So these smaller kind of checklists, like for restructuring, some 8-10 points you can list out what is the eligibility criteria, and you can make it. What are the provisioning for restructuring? Maybe a small checklist. So the team member which is going to check provision for restructuring, they'll have to check that up to 1 crore, 5% blanket provision is done. Above 1 crore restructured account, actual diminution in fair value would be worked out on NPV basis, and that actual provision would be made. The standard restructured account, 2 years, it will attract higher provision. All those things, basic things you can capture where you feel that in that particular branch, you need to provide more guidance and make smaller checklists for smaller areas, and that would be filled by the team members when they verify that particular loan account or loan type, or maybe provisions, or a broader checklist for NPA or advances all put together, and keep it in working paper. Also make sure that use the reporting formats which are suggested, link them with your working papers. Wherever you are issuing addition to the reports, make sure that annexure is highlighted on the face of the report so that the reader takes cognizance of it. Otherwise, I have seen many times there are attachments along with the report, but there is no mention in the report. So naturally, when it reaches the reader, if the branch decides to remove that attachment, it goes without anybody's notice. MOC, Another important place where documentation is important, like there are adjustments which are required to be done through MOC. I've seen many times branch auditors refraining from writing a MOC, rather they would prefer to write that adjustment in long form audit report. Friends, remember that long form audit report takes 30 days time subsequent to signing of balance sheet for banks to prepare and compile. But many auditors, because of this not passing a MOC and passing it through LFAR, ultimately the efforts are wasted, because MOC is an adjustment to the balance sheet, long form audit report is subsequently compiled. So when somebody goes for compilation of that observation and there is no corresponding MOC passed, that observation is wasted. So make sure that wherever you feel like there is an adjustment required to books of accounts in a particular ledger or in a particular asset classification type, this is the only document where you have to do. All supporting documents, how you have arrived at a conclusion, like say for example, interest to be reversed in NPAs. So there would be an account statement and you would mark that these are the three things where it is not realized in cash, so I'm reversing it. That should be the working paper. All the idea is the working paper should speak for your actions in your reporting. Also, in case of LFAR, avoid yes, no, not applicable as an answer. This time the questions are such that it's really tough for you to write yes, no, not applicable as well. So wherever possible, based on your own experience, you write what is the sample you have tested, what is the process you have followed. Wherever possible, include facts, figures, and examples in the report, and they would be picked up in this entire documentation channel, starting from plan, execution, sample testing, observation, minutes, and then final conclusion. So anytime when you see a report, there would be a backward linkage with, yes, this was a planned activity, this was the sample tested, this was the outcome of the result of testing, this is how the management has replied, and how you have come to a conclusion. So this chain is linked up in your documents. I think your job is done. So make LFAR as also an audit approach for documentation. That's perfectly all right. So a sample, maybe you can take it like representations, you can keep it in working papers wherever you are satisfied. So all these things really tough, how to do it. So I suggest my team members to carry one 200-page notebook with them for every branch. And I make sure that on left-hand side, we write branch auditor's observation. And on the right-hand side of the page, I write branch management remarks. So on a daily basis, my team members keep on writing queries on the left-hand side. And at the end of the day, they give this diary to the branch manager and says that these are our observations. I want tomorrow morning all explanation and your answers on this, so that we will decide whether we are going to drop that query or we are going to take it to a logical conclusion, either by passing a memorandum of change voucher or reporting it at an appropriate place in long form audit report. And then try to link with papers, documents which are coming, refer number, and finally when you satisfy that, okay, fine, this query can be dropped, partner or the proprietor, whenever they visit, they can notify it and say that, okay, fine, this is an acceptable answer, go ahead. Wherever you feel like it is not a satisfactory answer, you have two options. You can rewrite the query and ask for more information, or you can take it to, okay, this should be reported as point number so and so of long form audit report, or this would convert into a memorandum of change, account debit this much, account credit this much. So that one diary itself talks about what work you all have done during this bank audit exercise. No doubt, it would be linked with audit program as well as audit report, which you are going to issue. Also, don't miss out on certificates. So many certificates. And as I said, please go through the covering letter, which is suggested by guidance note. That covering letter talks about what kind of activities you have conducted to verify all these certificates. Also, make sure that in your audit plan, you incorporate actual execution guideline to your team member about verifying each and every certificate which you are going to issue. So there would be one part for entire audit area, one part for entire certificates which are required to be signed by the branch auditors. For that, you can refer to this guidance note as well. Guidance note on reports or certificates for special purpose, revised in 2016. Excellent documentation. Even the reporting formats are being suggested, which are being picked up from this guidance note. So GN 2021 on bank audit has got this format suggested. Please use it. that would reduce your responsibility to a greater extent that your audit is being carried out. Along with audit, the certificates are being tested on a test check basis. That's a big point. Also, remote audit, as I said, the 6th May 2020 guideline issued by AASB, one must use it. You have the next speaker here, Dhananjay. I know he has contributed in making that guidance note for members about how to conduct the audit remotely. Use it. It talks about, prepare separate dedicated email, soft copy of data, information, documents can be obtained, sufficient appropriate audited evidence should be obtained. Excellent document, we should use it. Also, follow this SA 230. Elaborative guidance is given. You can have documents in the nature of physical papers, emails, soft copies, whatever method, electronics, photo. Yeah, you'll be surprised. Last year, one of the auditor friend had an interaction with the branch on a video call, and he verified the process of cash verification, etc. I said, "Have you documented it?" He said, "Yes, I've recorded that call." So, alternate methods because of this COVID, innovative technology we are all using. So, you can take the clue from the SA 230. Like, no doubt, every standard has got its own basic requirements. So, I've captured that for your knowledge. You can just take it back, read it, make sure that your audit working papers fit into this periphery of this standard as well. The primary objective is to record the audit procedures performed, relevant audit evidence obtained, and finally conclusions reached. So plan, execute, report. Chain has to be properly evident from the documents. Then one can say that my documents speak for my audit. Prepare documents that provide sufficient and appropriate record on the basis of which auditor's report is done and evidence that audit was planned, performed in accordance with the compliance of the standard. So overall objective is this: try to link it with plan, execution, and report. Give proper training to team. Keep the documents on timely basis. Notify them whenever the reporting requirements occur. Also, some reference with SQC1 and ICI guidelines, like up to what set documents like documentation engagement as per 7 years from the date of audit report you'll have to maintain. Anytime, whenever inquired by the law and regulatory, then only you are supposed to keep it. Otherwise, documents are your own property. You can keep it. Also, working paper files within 60 days, no doubt you'll have to prepare. But this particular assignment, I feel that, before you complete the audit, it should be documented properly. Otherwise, two things happen. Number one, your team also get disbursed and they start working on different assignments. So very difficult to bring them back to the same work. Number two, if at all anything is required from the branch, जिस दिन आप रिपोर्ट साइन कर देते हो तब तक तो आप भगवान हो उनके लिए. जिस दिन साइन कर दिया उसके बाद भूल जाते हैं आपको. They'll not even take your phone calls. No doubt, there would be some exceptions where they'll have to come back to you. Sir, ये एक certificate रह गया है. Madam, ये एक certificate रह गया है. As if you can just put a stamp and send it back. So exceptions are certainly there. So make sure that your entire documentation is in compliance with this SA 230. Wherever possible, list out it separately, like what was the program, what were the analytics, were there any queries raised and documentation done, minutes, summary of significant matters, maybe key audit matters if any, you will have to report. Maybe for SS 600 compliance, you'll have to report to central auditors about certain things complied, certain things you could not conclude, so you want attention of the central auditor to look into. All that you can keep separate. For this, this is a very interesting document which is available on the website of ICI, or you can buy it as a publication also. For ready-made checklist, this is also another publication of ICI. One-page checklist for each standard. You can modify based on whatever your experience about bank audit, and make sure that a soft copy is also kept saying that we have tried to follow all the compliances as required by the standards. Certainly, my personal experience is that standards on auditing enhance the quality of our work. Because it's an illustrative checklist, at least this is minimum we have to cover. So this certainly supplements us that we are not missing out on any important factor with respect to documentation. Also, another important matter is almost all the bank branch auditors are covered under Schedule 3 for peer review. Some of you might have also undergone peer review. Some of you were seniors, maybe peer reviewers as well. I think these are the questions where you have to directly comment about the documentation process and practice unit, which is covered by you as a peer reviewer. So certainly, if you are a practice unit, this is something we will have to answer. Naturally, it links with all the documentation. I think that's what I had time. If any questions, we'll take it. Otherwise, once again, thank you to the chairman and secretary of the branch for giving me this opportunity. Thank you to you all for giving me a hearing. Thanks.
Thank you so much, sir, for covering the most untouched area of Bain branch audit that is more relevant in the audit, that is working paper management. And at the end, we can say that working paper is required to compliance with RBI guidelines, with ICI guidance notes, with accounting standards, with standards on auditing, with peer review, with regarding certification guidelines issued by RBI and many more. So working paper जो है वो सर मुझे नहीं लगता कि शायद ही 100% हम लोग कवर कर पाएंगे, पर जितना भी हम कवर करेंगे उतना ही हमारे लिए ऑडिट रिस्क कम होगी. So once again, thank you so much, and I am sure that members will take a very much a lot of knowledge from this excellent session. And one more thing, I would like to say that in the coming period, maybe in 1 or 2 days, RBI may given one more document that provisioning norms or classification norms will be changed, because 90 days is again, so maybe possible 180 days का classification बहुत जल्दी एक दो दिन में आने वाला है. So thank you.